All right, so my name is Richard. I did this case study with Morgan and Albert. Our case study is protecting personal data. Specifically, our situation is a community clinic. They have 3 different sites, and the director wants a computerized record and appointment system for a network for each of the sites. They don't have a lot of stuff, uh, resources right now. They have 2 shared desktop computers in the main clinic office, and all the clients' records are on paper and in word processing and spreadsheet applications, which is pretty easy to get a hold of if you're pretty tech savvy and you really want this information for some reason. Um, so before we go any further, we've sectioned out this PowerPoint into 3 different sections. What is personal data? I can count. Uh, Threats to personal data, and countermeasures that could be taken to stop this, which is where a lot of the case study is going to be talked about. So, um, what first of all, what is personal data? It's pretty obvious. Anything personal to you, information that is personal to you. So, Morgan's listed a couple of things here. This is her section: home address, IP address, phone number, email address, name, date of birth, social security, all that good stuff. A lot of this is very important because you would not believe how criminals can find ways to exploit your data, and beyond, uh, you know, identity theft and stuff like that. It is they're finding new ways every day to exploit this information. So it's pretty important that we protect this data. Uh, Threats to it are obviously a data breach. I'm going to go over what types of data breaches are. Um, so you have accidental exposure, which is most likely the one that will happen at our community clinic. I imagine most of the people at these small type of clinics aren't extremely tech savvy, I should say, and as I do say, and it could be as simple as leaving a window open and someone passing by to look at that. It could really that simple. If someone knows what they're doing, they could just see some information that they need, and they could use that to hack into a network in any way if they know how. Uh, there's also the much easier way for criminals is insider information. It's basically the same as accidental exposure, except it's malicious in nature. So someone on the inside is handing someone outside passwords and stuff, or maybe not even that. They're just being like, "Hey, at this time, this is a good time." We're not. It could still be accidental, actually. Like say, "Oh yeah, in passing, they're saying at 11 o'clock we scrub the system, and that'll be the best time to do it." The person he is talking to, it might not necessarily uh, be there to get this information, but knows what to do with this information. So, uh, it's pretty scummy. Ooh, what? I skipped a few. And then hacking, which is what's going to happen, which is what happens when there's a data breach. People call it hacking. It's really easy. It's just really easy to call it that. And this could come in the form of ransomware, SQL injection, DDoS attacks. I don't expect anyone to really know what that stuff is, but SQL injection is probably the scariest one for our situation because SQL deals with databases, and all you do is if you get into the network, you can get into the SQL. You can put in a couple characters, and then suddenly you have access to everything. It is something I'm still learning about, but pretty devastating for both sides. So, before we go any further, supposed to identify a lot of people. So, the stakeholders. It's everyone involved here. So, me, the person installing the system, if I can install the system, the client, the community clinic itself will lose a lot of reputation if it loses it, and then obviously its clients who have this medical history stored in this, right? Uh, I've already gone over a lot of the risks to it and who benefits from these risks. Well, if they get past them risks, but my responsibility now is to go over how we can talk about or how to counteract a lot of these issues. So the problem is, as I've said, their budget is small, and the director, she wants tablets and smartwatches and smartphones for everyone so that they can have ease of access to this information. Except that causes big budgets. Now we have to decide whether or not that is more important or not. But we can do a couple things to a couple small things to automatically increase cybersecurity without having to install a ton of things. So, but that's not exactly what I'm going to talk about in this specific slide. So, the implement. So this is Albert's section. This section before was mine, and the first section was Morgan. I've done this like 10 times, so I don't know for sure if I said that. Albert is saying here that we need to have software that protects against information when it's in use. When information is being used and accessed, it's actually easier to get into it, if that makes sense. He's also saying we should create a directory system so that basically a hierarchy system. Only this person can have this type of data, this person this data, this person this data, etc., etc. And this is kind of along the same thing. We don't want just one password for everything. You don't want one client going into the app and typing in their information and suddenly they have everything. They don't need some employees don't need everything. They just need specific things. So more hierarchy in terms of passwords and stuff like that too. The devices. This is when things get expensive. We gotta decide. We'd have to talk to the client, decide whether or not if the ease of access outweighs the risks, because tablets can be misplaced, and there could be a breach before we even realize it's gone. However, you could also add some security to that by anytime the tablet leaves a global coordinate or whatever is far away from it, it can signal someone and we can remotely erase everything on that thing. Again, expensive. We'd have to help identify if that is more important or not. If the ease of access is just as important. And lastly, what Albert has written is that the VP is a VPN. So VPN is honestly can't remember what it stands for. Basically, you've probably heard of it. It's how do I word it? It's just a workaround to a Wi-Fi, essentially. So you're basically using internet, but it's incognito in a way, because you're using different servers that aren't at your location. So this is by far the most effective means of personal data, because it's so hard to hack this, because it's just using resources that are not available in your country. It's a lot more complicated than that, but yeah. So hopefully that I've covered everything I need to. I've already gone 2 minutes over, and I don't feel like I've covered a lot. But yeah, hopefully we can talk to the director and figure out that some things are more necessary than others, and we have to figure out if she's willing to pay that cost, because the information is very sensitive, and as her community grows, the more sensitive information will be, and the juicier it looks to a lot of these criminals. So we'd have to outweigh the risks and rewards, decide whether or not tablets are useful, etc. Yeah, and that's my presentation. Hopefully that's good enough for everyone. Yeah, thank you guys for watching.